Hey paisanos, it's the Super Mario sequel speculation video. Alright, so anyways, we're talking about Super Mario Brothers and the future of this possible franchise. What we're going to talk about here today is I'm joined by Mr. Fusion, and we're not talking about Dragon Ball, and we're not talking about Star Wars. That's good. We're talking about Mario, because here's what happened. So this Mario movie came out. It's breaking all kinds of records. It beat Frozen. It's like the most successful animated film, maybe of all time, I think. It's just phenomenal. And it's being very well received from the fans. But the movie left a lot of questions about where we go from here. With Sonic the Hedgehog being a success in 2020 and the sequel being a success in 2022, here we have now Mario coming along, getting his movie, unlike the John Leguizamo 1990s one. This one's actually like really referential to the game. So where do we go from here? There's a lot of directions, Nintendo could take. Now, before we go any further, this video is going to contain some spoilers, or it may contain spoilers for Mario. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go to your movie theater now and then come back and finish the video. In fact, go right now, like literally right now when you're watching this, go see it. It's that damn good, especially if you're a fan. But Lance, let's talk about it. So to me, there were three possible, and they've already talked, Chris Pratt already talked about this, with teasing, three possible directions they could take here when it comes to where we go from here. Movies that make this much money never, ever get left alone. It's going to get a sequel. Everything gets a sequel now. It is what it is. There's a post-credit scene and a mid-credit scene that leaves it open for a sequel. The mid-credit is more like a joke, but you've got Mario 2, which is probably going to have a lot of elements from Mario World with Yoshi, etc. You've got, for me, you've got a possible Luigi's Mansion film because we saw him go into the Dark Lands, and you know it was almost like, are they gonna give us the creeped out Luigi? And then we've also got the possibility of a Donkey Kong film. Now, Lance has a wonderful video on the Mr. Fusion channel about Donkey Kong. It's one of the better videos that you've put out. It's great. And I'll leave a link down below if you haven't seen that video yet, because if you like Mario or even any Nintendo, you don't have to even be a Donkey Kong fan, it's a good video. So, leaving the movie theater, as a fan, what did you want to see next?
Actually, it was none of those three things. I was excited. I was hoping there'd be more payoff to Princess Peach's backstory. There was this sort of dangling idea they had in there of, oh, I came from another world, that's brand new to me as far as I've ever heard. But she's been training all her life for this, and it almost seemed like it was more of a Super Princess Peach movie in a way. But they never really followed up on that. It's just, okay, I came from another world, and then it's never mentioned again after that. But she has these amazing skills, powers for most of the movie beyond Mario. So it's like, and also she sort of ties in the Mario Galaxy element by saying, oh, there are a lot of different galaxies out there. I could come from any one of them. So it really seems like that was meant as some kind of hook. Okay, in the next movie we're going to travel the worlds and find out where the princess comes from and what her deal is. And that's what most excited me.
No, and I thought the same thing. Not necessarily about they were going to do it next, but it was a teaser. You know, they found her, the Toads found her, and then she got these abilities. It was almost implied that because she went to the Mushroom Kingdom from, like, Mario speculated she might have been from the same world he was from, which is the Mario version of Earth or whatever, where Charles Martinet plays the father of Mario, which I thought was pretty clever because he kind of is the father of many Mario voice acting. Definitely Chris Pratt. But yeah, so Peach, I think that could be, she can get her own movie. I mean, look, the Super Princess Peach game on DS is a really good platformer. It's not one that people talk about too much, but it's a good game. Not to mention she's also awesome in Mario 2 / Mario USA. I'm not gonna go into, hey guys, it used to be Doki Doki. I have to say that because if I don't say it, someone's gonna say it in the comments. Did you know it used to be? Yes, everybody on Earth by now knows it used to be Doki Doki Panic. Everyone knows, bro. Even people who haven't even been born yet. They are born with this knowledge. So you don't have to tell us in the comments that, all right? So anyways, she's still awesome in that game. Yes, that'd be great. So that, like you said, I don't recall that ever being part of her backstory. I always assumed that she was just from the Mushroom Kingdom. Is that what you thought as well?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the games go, that probably is still the case. I mean, I compartmentalize this anyway. I don't consider this, the movie is its own thing, and it's very close to the games, but, they can do whatever they want. I was surprised they even went with the whole Brooklyn thing, because I feel like the games had moved away. Like that was more of a Super Show, the 93 movie. They were big on the Mario Brothers come from Brooklyn, and they fell in a warp pipe and ended up here, whereas the games have long since gone, oh, Yoshi's Island, they're babies, they've been here since babies.
And they did have an Easter egg where we saw them as babies, and I thought that was adorable and awesome.
Yep. So clearly the movies are taking its own liberties, which is fine, which is great. So that was one of the bigger surprises for me, is that they seemed to imply there was more to Peach than just being, I'm the princess, I'm here, don't question it, I'm just here.
No, it's funny because when you talk about what you just said, a lot of times, depending on how we digest media, will depend on our perspective. So the story of the Mario brothers being from Brooklyn as plumbers and eventually being in the Mushroom Kingdom, that is a story that I also remember from the Super Show, but for some reason, I just took it as being official. In other words, before...
Me too.
Yeah, like, I thought that maybe, like, Nintendo sent the animators or the staff, like, maybe it could be that with this film as well. They sent them, like, okay, here is Mario's backstory in case you got to do it for an episode. And they just incorporated it. I never questioned him not being from Brooklyn. And then, of course, the original movie, live action one, did the same thing. But it sort of reminds me of how you had done a dissection a long time ago about Dragon Ball, where, like, it goes to, like, the anime of, and we're not going to talk about Dragon Ball here, but it is a brief thing. There are things in the anime where if you grew up watching that first, it sort of indoctrinates you in your head, and then when you read the manga, it's just not there. Like, there's all kinds of, like, Chi-Chi's behavior, Goku's house. You mentioned that in one of your dissections being different in the anime, so they had to redraw it. Different in the manga, they had to redraw it. Yeah, like that type of
King
stuff.
Vegeta crest, I think, that people always get tattooed on them. That's not in Toriyama's original series at all. That was created in the animated version. But there's so many things that have either taken a hold onto the fandom, or in some cases are like recursively sort of added back.
Like Bardock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the biggest example.
So I'm wondering. I feel like I've heard, because, like, obviously when a character is created in those early years, there's a lot of flux. I just did a video on the designs of Mario and how it shifted in its early years. But I feel like I did hear things like maybe in Mario Brothers, not Super Mario Brothers, the tiny, flimsy, paper thin story there is that they might have been plumbers in New York working in the sewers, and that's where the premise of that game is. But since this is also a multinational corporation, you don't know how much of that comes from the original creators versus how much that comes from American subsidiary. Like, even the name Mario, was named after the landlord on the Nintendo of America building. That was not what they came up with over in Japan initially. It just sort of it got adopted back in. So there are all kinds of influences there. So I'm curious where exactly the Brooklyn thing first came from, but it very much became part of this broader merchandising cultural mythos through the cartoon, which the movie then picked up, the '93 movie picked up, and it's amazing how much legs that idea had, like how much influence those stupid cartoons had, and how the early '90s perceived Mario.
Well, it's just
and again how this movie still ran with it all these years later. I did not expect to see any of that kind of stuff ever again. I thought we were well past it.
Right. No, I was wondering how they were going to make it all make sense. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, they actually made it work for me. Another example of that would also be the word Coruscant from Star Wars.
Oh
Coruscant
yeah, yeah.
that's a Timothy Zahn idea. And then freaking George Lucas said, okay, we'll put it in the prequels. It's just funny how, yeah, like what you said. So, all right, Yoshi obviously is if when they're gonna do a second movie, if it hasn't been announced by today, it'll be announced by the end of the month or maybe in a couple months. It's gonna happen. I don't see that not happening. So we saw the Yoshis there briefly in the background, an Easter egg. The Yoshi that we know of, the green one, the one that's iconic for Mario World, it seems like he's gonna end up in the real world. And so there's a couple of ideas I think they can go with. One is they haven't introduced the Koopa Kids, and the Koopa Kids were a lot of fun in the old Mario 3 and World cartoon. They changed all the names, but it's okay. They were fun. And I would
do you know the names? I'm gonna quiz you right now.
I don't remember, and I used to. If you asked me this when I was 10 years old, I could tell you the names of both shows. I don't know. I don't remember the names. Ludwig von Koopa.
Wait, are you talking about the game names or the show names? Do you know
I
either of them?
used to know both. Wendy O. Koopa, and I think she became Cutie, right? Cutie Pie or something like that?
Cootie Pie.
See, I used to know, dude, I used to know all of this, like when I was 10, I could recite this to you like that. But it's been so long. I haven't seen the show in so long.
Larry became Cheatsy. Ludwig became Kooky von Koopa. Wendy O. Koopa was Cootie Pie Koopa. Iggy and Lemmy became Hip and Hop, the twins. Roy, Bully,
Right.
and Morton Koopa Jr. was Big Mouth.
That's probably because Morton Downey Jr. was a big mouth, and his symbol is the. But why did they change the names? Do you know why they even did that for this TV show?
I heard because in Japan, well, first of all, those names, the Wendy's and the Ludwigs, those were localization names. In Japan, from what I remember, they didn't have names at all. They were just Koopa Kids, Koopalings, whatever. They didn't have individual names, and so like the game was coming to America, the show was being developed, and they sort of came about independently. Like the game, like Nintendo of America said, "Oh, we're gonna make names for them," and Deke was like, "We're gonna make names for them." It was just a completely independent. That's what I've heard. It was an independent process. They just each came up with their own individual names without consulting with the other because they didn't have names originally.
So if they bring them into the movies, what are they gonna call them?
Oh, I'm sure they call them the game names. I'm sure they would do that.
I hope so. But it would be cool if they had a reference like if they call Morton Koopa Jr. Big Mouth, that like little, they love doing things like this. Movie was filled with stuff like that where they're referencing. I mean, I picked up on like 60 Easter eggs when I saw it, and I'm sure if I watched it again, it would be like 100. So
yeah, it was the Ludwig von Koopa grand piano that he was playing, right?
Not just that, he's wearing the tux from Mario Odyssey when he was gonna marry Peach. Like, you know, the tux. He looks sharp in that movie, whatever. Yeah. So okay. So what I was thinking is, and this is me just, I went to dinner with a friend. The Koopa Kids. So Yoshi belongs to the Koopa Kids. This is my sort of plot I came up with in my head. I could always ask AI to make me one. So Yoshi belongs to one of the Koopa Kids. They free Bowser at the beginning of the movie because he's gonna get freed. They want to go to the real world. They go to the real world, but by that point, Yoshi's already aligned with Mario. So instead, they go back to they go back through the warp zone. They go to Dinosaur Land, and that's how we end up having the big battle there. That's what I would do. There's obviously more of the plot you could fill out, but that's the base plot of it. I think that works. So you've got Mario 3 and Mario World, and you can also take elements from Yoshi's Island, like some of the enemies and things like that we see there, and do that as well. I mean, there are so many games, and this movie pulled from so many of them, and they still have plenty of stuff to go.
Well, that's interesting. You go in that direction because isn't that similar to what the '93 movie did? Like, wasn't Yoshi like a pet of Koopa?
Yeah.
In that movie?
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. But the Goombas were also like 7 feet tall, and you know, Big Bertha was a BBW lady or whatever. Dude, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. You know, I saw it in theaters.
too. And I had all the action figures, and I'm so sad I don't have them anymore. I had Mario and Luigi and the Goomba. I love like you take the trench coat off the Goomba. It was so cool.
I don't even remember those. What was cool though is the McDonald's. Was it McDonald's, the Mario 3 toys where you had like the Mario with the raccoon where he was like a spring? I had those. I had them.
I just used them in the video I put out last
Yeah.
week. I still have them.
I wonder how much money they're worth. We could find out. eBay. So okay, so we've got that now. I want to shift gears to Donkey Kong. He was a big part of this film. I thought upon the trailer it was going to be one scene, we're done. No, there was that scene where Mario and him are like having that buddy cop scene inside of the eel. I'm like, okay, this sounds like it's being set up to do their own thing. And I was wondering if we were going to get like a Captain K. Rool reference, but Diddy and Dixie are in the arena. You vividly see them there. So
But Diddy's even called out by name. Like they really shove. I mean, they really make sure you notice cameo or Cranky's like Diddy, shut up or something. So
it was right
Not
in your
subtle.
face. So right. So I'm thinking, okay, Donkey Kong Country gets its own movie because they could do like a cinematic universe thing where, and that movie, that's when you have Captain K. Rool. That's what you basically tell the story of the games, but not. Obviously, you have to make up stuff and make it all fit. But then you could have a story where the trio of Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie together are trying to take out Captain K. Rool. Like that would make sense, right? Is there anything else you think you should throw in there?
I like that idea. I think, and this is going to be my little bit of criticism for the movie, is that I almost wanted them to cut out the DK stuff as much as I love Donkey Kong Country, just because I wanted more time to flesh out the Mario stuff. So it almost felt like we didn't really need this. So I'd almost be happier to see a spin-off of Donkey Kong, especially now that we're already here.
And it felt that way. Like I know exactly what you're talking about because I didn't want them to cut it out, but I thought like, okay, was he really needed for this film? And it hit me like, okay, they have to be introducing him to give him his own film. It just that's what people do now. Marvel does it. Star Wars does it. There's rumors of Rocky getting they're doing a Rocky anime and Drago's going to get his own spin-off series and a prequel. Everyone's doing it now. They're taking that Marvel formula, except Dragon Ball, of course, because Toei's so ahead of everybody else. But everyone's doing it. Right, so you'd think it makes sense. What else would you add?
Had to sneak that in there.
I do not like
Love
that
it.
company. I do not like that company. I'm not a fan. Yeah. So
Although I have to say that I'm now gonna have like people in my comments because there's always been that confusion as to what the Kong family tree is, and most of the games. Most of the country games or Rare's games said that Cranky is Donkey Kong's grandfather, except for Donkey Kong 64, which said they were father and son. Now this movie said it several times that they were father and son. And again, like I said, this is a movie; it can do whatever it wants. I don't care. But I know people are going to be using that as proof now.
that takes me back to 2015. Beerus did not tell Frieza to destroy Planet Vegeta. That was only in the dub, and then it's in the Japanese version too. So thanks. I'm going back to Dragon Ball only because you can relate, and so can I, about these universes and how they do things. So then we have Luigi's Mansion. This one kind of speaks for itself. We saw Shy Guys in the film. We saw Bob-Ombs. Again, they're from Doki Doki Panic, I know, but they've been integrated into Mario's universe. So I think it would make sense if we see the boos and I don't recall, was there a boo in the movie? I don't recall one of the boos being in there at all.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm thinking of boos, but then again, I just got done playing Mario Galaxy
Yeah,
a couple
well,
days ago, so I've seen a lot of them. So I'm like, oh god, what am I? Where?
you're brainwashing yourself.
Yeah, where am I? I don't know where I am anymore. I don't know. I don't think we did. That
That's
would be an
smart.
interesting route too. But I was also disappointed. Like I would rather have had, because this is the Super Mario Brothers movie, and it didn't feel like that for a lot of it because Luigi was captured for most of it. It
I
became
agree.
Mario and Donkey Kong or Mario and Peach, and I really wanted to see more because they set up a really good dynamic at the beginning in the first act of the movie of these two characters. of these brothers, and I really want to see more of that. So I wouldn't mind going in a Luigi's Mansion direction or even a spin-off, as long as it doesn't pull Luigi out of Mario's orbit, because I really want to see Mario and Luigi go on an adventure together like they did in the cartoons that I love so much from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We don't see enough of it. I think because the game is Super Mario Brothers and it's always Mario on the front cover and I mean, hell, when we were kids, I think the first time that Luigi was actually like ahead of Mario would have been the educational games, right? Like Mario is missing.
Mario's missing. Yep.
Yeah, and then Luigi's Mansion came along. We're like, finally, like he's gonna actually get his own series. Like that was refreshing, right? And he's always playing a backseat to Mario, and the movie kind of followed that. But I agree. I wanted to see more of them together because they did have a great dynamic. I thought the voice actor who played Luigi was fantastic. I love that guy. Yeah. So
What's his name from? He's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right?
Ray. Oh, I talked about it in the review, and I forgot his name already. It's only been a few days. Yeah, he's good. Well, the voice talent was good. I think everybody was worried about that, but it wound up being good. Now, I want to talk to you about some other Nintendo things because I've seen people on Twitter saying that they could really go nuts with this and do like Legend of Zelda, Star Fox, Metroid, all Earthbound even, which I just want to say this right now. The Mother series, Earthbound, some of the best, albeit frustrating, but some of the best RPGs ever. I don't think they can work as movies. I think they're too trippy. It's like an LSD trip. I don't think they're going to work as movies. But people are saying they can do all this, right, and then eventually do a Smash Brothers movie. I disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because Zelda and Star Fox and Metroid are so different that to do a crossover universe, it would almost sort of change the dynamics of the, I don't want to call it magic systems, because when I say that, people get confused. I know you know what I mean. But like sort of the lore of the worlds. Mario is so different from Zelda, so different from Star Fox. I would like them, though, to consider doing a movie, because they could do movies of all these games. I mean, they did a movie about Metro. It's called Alien. That's already been done. But and Star Fox is basically Independence Day. Trust me, bro. When I first played Star Fox 64, and there's like 4 levels that straight up rip Independence Day, I was like, well, if they ever make an Independence Day game, I ain't gotta play it. And they did, and it sucked anyway. So Star Fox 64 is the real Independence Day game. But like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about them adapting other Nintendo stories?
I wouldn't mind them doing other adaptations. I agree with you that I have a hard time seeing this as some sort of multiverse thing. I think the only way you could really do it, and this is kind of what they've already kind of set up, is the idea of there being all these infinite parallel
Galaxies.
dimensions.
Right.
But it'd have to be something like that. It couldn't, because I can't remember where this is from, but the other day I saw like a quote from Miyamoto where he said he was surprised that the movie incorporated Mario and Donkey Kong into the same world, because he said he'd always seen them as separate. But then he was like, well, then again, Donkey Kong's always in like Mario Party and stuff. So it actually it was more of a fit than I thought it was going to be. And I think since they started out together, it wasn't that big of a stretch to put them back together.
I agree.
And I think that was okay in terms of tone, in terms of art style, in terms of all that kind of stuff. But it'd be a lot harder. I wouldn't want. I don't think I'd want like a Super Smash Brothers type of universe.
Me neither. Me neither.
There's too many tones, too many art styles, and it's fine. You're just gonna have people come in and beat each other up for fun. But trying to tell a real story with that, I don't want to say anything is impossible. Also, especially given how this movie was heavy on references, a little bit lighter on plot than I would have wanted to. I don't want to stretch the premise too thin. I'd rather have just a really tight, focused Mario movie. Get into the depths. Like, there's so many things you could do with that without trying to incorporate, but also just in terms like for certain more slightly more serious franchises like Metroid or Legend of Zelda, I think it would do them a disservice to try to cram them into Mario. Like let them be their own thing. This could serve as a great launching point
Yep.
for this, and what was it, The Last of Us just had the TV series run.
Big
Popular
success.
things like that can pave the way for more franchises to likewise get sort of faithful popular adaptations.
Well,
But I don't think there's a reason to marvel it all together necessarily.
yeah, I think what they could do is do like the Mario cinematic universe where you have Donkey Kong's movies, Luigi's
Yeah.
movies, Mario movie, the Peach prequel story, and even you could even throw, you know what? I would even buy Kirby. You could even throw Kirby in there because he's at least like that cutesy, cartoony character. I love Kirby, but something like Zelda. If I'm picturing a Zelda movie, I'm picturing like that IGN April Fool's trailer from like 15 years ago, right? Remember that?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm picturing sort of like a big epic Lord of the Rings style, like, heavy lore and swords and you know what Zelda is. That could work, I think, for its own separate thing. When you got Link going through pipes and meeting Donkey Kong, now I'm starting to think, okay, it works for Mario Kart, which is a party game. Not Mario Party is not the only party game. It works for Mario Tennis. It works for Smash Bros. These are all party games. That's fine. You can do It's no different than when they did like the Shonen Jump games where you've got like all the jump characters like Goku and Naruto and Luffy, but when you cross them over, and they have done like a crossover special, but it's one special. When you start having like, it just doesn't work. Whereas I think Mario, Luigi, Peach, like I said, that's fine. Zelda. Now, how do you feel? Like, do you agree that if they adapt Zelda, let's just say Legend of Zelda, right? How would you do that? Do you do an anime? I think you could do a nice animated Zelda film and it could be great. Or do you go the live action Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings route where it's not necessarily as violent and definitely no sex in there, but you still have that swashbuckling heroic adventure? Like, which way would you go if you were an executive?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I think Zelda comes with its own set of hurdles that Mario doesn't have.
Oh, totally different set of hurdles.
Because aside from more spin-off games like Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi, Mario has a uniform look, a uniform style. It's not very plot heavy, so you can sort of make that into whatever you want, but it still encompasses all of Mario. But Zelda does not have any of that. So it's like when you say, oh, it should be a Lord of the Rings type thing, oh, that might work if you're doing like a Twilight Princess kind of thing. But there are lots of Zelda games, and they all look different. They all they all have different characters. They all have different art styles. They all have different tones. Because a Twilight Princess and a Wind Waker are almost diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you distill that into a single movie? So it's either you have to take a liberty and like make it its own thing, maybe not quite as a departure as the 93 Mario movie, but it is sort of, making like doing a grab bag of different elements and putting them together, or you just take one game, one art style, and just run with that. If you do that, then you risk alienating people who, oh, my Zelda is this, or my Zelda is
You're
is Breath of
reading
the
my
Wild.
mind.
So I don't know how I would almost say you'd have to go with the first approach, which is just come at it like a clean slate and just try to be as true to the spirit as possible without necessarily trying to pin down a specific game. Unless you have like a huge cinematic universe, or I'm sure like a fan would want, where you just straight up adapt every single game in sequence, and then you can do everything. But
even that's got problems because of all the different Zelda timelines. Like, it gets really muddled because if you tell a Zelda story, what story are you telling? You could tell the original Zelda story, which is, Link has to save Zelda and get the piece of the Triforce. You could go the Zelda 2 route where she's asleep, maybe for a sequel. You can go Link to the Past. You can go Ocarina of Time, which was the first game that really felt truly cinematic, I think. And then they all kind of followed suit, like Majora's Mask, which is really more of a sequel to Ocarina. It's more like a spinoff. And then you've got like Twilight Princess, you mentioned Wind Waker. Then of course Breath of the Wild, and they have their own sort of like thing going on now. So it's really hard, to figure that out. And I agree with you totally. And also the other challenge is what makes Zelda so much fun is that Zelda is, yes, it has a ton of lore and great characters, especially Link, Zelda, and Ganon. They're great characters, but the dungeon crawling and discovering and finding items and how they work, that works for a game. For a movie, we could see the bow and arrow, we could see the hook shot, we could see the boomerang. We're not going to see 8 dungeons in one movie, bro. We're not going to see 12 dungeons. We might see 3 at most. So how would you adapt that? You have a few choices. One, you do a couple dungeons, and then you have the finale, or you do a classic Rocky montage where you're showing Link and you're going to like shoot a shot of the desert, and then he's in there like solving puzzles and fighting like, giant eels and whatever, right? You could do that. But the problem with that is you're going to have that fan who's like, man, I really wish they would have shown that, You can't win. Like, it's too much. Like you said, Mario's very uniform. Even Donkey Kong is very uniform. Even Kirby, but Zelda with its multiple timelines and, even the Nintendo official timeline doesn't make that much sense, and it never did to me. You've got fan theories. AVGN's got his video from like 15 years ago about it. Now, what about Star Fox? I think that actually could work because that, like Mario, is more uniform. Like, you got Fox, you've got Wolf, you've got Andros. Like, I think that could work.
I think so too, because I think what you just said about Zelda is the reason why it's been difficult to adapt interactive media into non-interactive art forms. I've been saying that
if you lose years.
Yeah, because if you lose that interactive element, which is not as fun to watch as it is to do, then you're left with, you sort of rip out what makes it interesting in the first place. But Mario and Donkey Kong are more blank canvases when it comes to narrative, so you can do twists and turns that the games don't have to worry about. I think Star Fox has that going for it too, where it's like, even though it is a mission structure, even though it has branching paths, there's not really. I don't think there'd be like a person going, it's not going to be a Star Fox movie unless I spend 20 minutes on Zonas.
The asteroid belt must be in the movie.
Yeah, so like there's. It's a very thin story for Star Fox as well, which is there's a solar system, there's an evil monkey guy, we have ships. It's you could do like a much more Star Warsy type of thing where it's like you go to a few planets, there's a quest. Obviously you couldn't spend the entire movie just sitting in the cockpit of an R-wing. You have to take some liberties, some Star Fox adventure-esque liberties with it.
Right.
But I do think there's a much more open canvas to work with. That could be an adaptation. I just don't know. I don't know if Star Fox now has the kind of cultural cachet that would bring in a movie. Like, because does anybody really care about Fox McCloud as a character?
I don't know.
I love playing as him. I love playing Star Fox.
I loved it as a kid. Yeah, right.
But do I really care about that character? Do I really want to see him helm a movie? What is he even about as a person?
They would have to make that up for the movie. Yeah. They would have to just make it up or take, No, and I think Metroid is similar to Zelda in that what makes Metroid fun is the exploring and it's basically Metroid is
you are Samus. That's what's exciting about that.
Yeah, it's one giant dungeon as opposed to like a bunch of little ones in Zelda. But again, how can you, and I already made the joke about Alien because they borrowed so much from Alien, there's just no point, And then Earthbound, here's my thing about Earthbound, because I've seen a lot of people say, I would love to see an Earthbound movie. People say that because they're fans of the games, not realizing that here's the thing about video game movies. There you go. I've got mine in the other room. I can't whip mine out, I wish I could. But okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing about JRPGs. It is very difficult, if not impossible to adapt a JRPG properly, and I don't think they've ever got it right. Because most JRPGs are long. They have they have long, big stories. They've done 2 Final Fantasy movies. They both suck. I'm sorry, but Advent Children sucked. Now, what they did in Advent Children was smart. They tied it into an existing game. If they did like a Zelda movie that tied into Breath of the Wild in some way, maybe that could work, but even then you're still risking, it's still a risk. It's not a good idea.
It's not going to play to a general audience. Like Advent Children, like you said, is for people who've already played Final Fantasy VII, which limits who it's going to play to as an audience.
Right, exactly.
Whereas the Mario movie is much more accessible.
Yeah, and the Metroid thing I think is not going to work. Earthbound, and that's why I don't think Earthbound's going to work. Now, do you agree? Do you think? Do you see like them actually someday? I think the only way you can adapt a JRPG, and I'm talking about any. We're talking about anything from Persona to Dragon Quest to Final Fantasy, is if you have a serialized television show where it's like season 1, season 2, season 3. So if you could take the story of Final Fantasy IV, which is my favorite Final Fantasy, and tell a great story, like a 7-season story of there it is, 2. That's 2 though. I have 4 in the other room and 2. Well, I don't have 2. I have 4.
I mean, this is 4. They just renamed it. You know how it's works.
Easy.
Come on.
It's easy type though. It's the easy type version.
All right, fine.
Wait, are you gonna whip out 4?
Yes, I am. If we're gonna do this.
The PS1 version, right? Well, I'll shut up while you whip it out in the middle of
Yes.
Okay. I love that version, yo. I love that version. You gotta play. I know you never will, but you gotta play the
Dragon Quest. I know.
No, that's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say you gotta
Really? You weren't gonna say Dragon Quest?
Well, I should, but no, you should play Final Fantasy IV on PSP because that's got the 2 sequel games and it's got the upgraded graphics and the extra dungeons and the extra story. It's worth it. Trust me. They did a good job. But to my point, like, do you see any way for them to do something like Earthbound? I just don't see it. I don't see it working. People, I think, get so like, oh, I want to see Ness on the big screen. I get it, you're a fan, but there's just some things that don't work for movies.
I'm not going to say a road trip movie wouldn't work, which is what most of JRPGs are. They are road trips.
They are. That's true.
Because road trip movies are a thing. The problem comes into how much of a straight adaptation do you want something to be?
They have to cut stuff out.
You have the 93 Mario movie, which I haven't seen it in a long time, but I liked it. Even as a kid, I liked it. It didn't bother me that it wasn't like the games because it was doing its own thing. Whatever.
Right.
But it has become more and more in vogue of late. And I get why. You want to capture the essence of what makes Mario. And there's a fine line you have to traverse when you're adapting stuff like this. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to do a JRPG or as a road trip movie, you are going to have to rebuild it from the ground up. And you have to be, as an audience member, have to be willing to accept that this is not going to be Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy IV or Earthbound the game directly translated to screen. Otherwise, you're going to get The Last Airbender kind of mess, where it's taking this long story that's not meant to be digested in a single sitting and just trying to cram it into a 2-hour movie to the point that, like, you get, like, little montage snippets of, oh, then we went to this city and did this thing for 5 seconds. Now we're over here. Now we're here. Now we're here. Now we're here. You have to be willing to make some concessions.
I mean, that's
some
why...
big concessions.
Oh, yeah, and that's why I've said multiple times that live-action Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball movies aren't going to work, because all the animated Dragon Ball films, except for like some, like the 10th anniversary one, but they're all spin-offs of the series. There's very few that are just its own thing, and you know, there's a few like Chinese ones, and Evolution didn't work, but that's the point. Like, there's just some things. I think people have to understand that not everything can be a movie. Not everything should be a movie. They've tried Resident Evil like 4 times. It doesn't work live action. If you're watching this and you want live action Resident Evil, go to Amazon, type in George Romero, and watch all his movies, because that's the closest you're gonna come to an actual Resident Evil live action. Just play the games. Like, I just feel I agree with you in that. I think that different mediums are different. You've got literature, you've got TV shows, you've got books. I mean, literature. You've got, I'm sorry, movies, and you've got games, and they're all different. With games, you play them, you can do whatever you want. You're in control. With movies, you're sitting there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. TV shows longer, and then literature even longer, but you got more detail. And I just feel like, some things should stay where they are. Not everything, but some things I think should.
I don't know if I might. I don't know if I would go quite that far. I might. I think it's certainly worth being cautious about. But it is an interesting challenge. I always, and that's why I wasn't like in that era like 10 years ago, and everybody was trying to like split book adaptations into 2 movies to maximize their profit.
Yeah.
I was kind of annoyed by that because like all the fans were like, "Oh, now we get to see every last detail from the books translated to movies," and I'm
Nope.
like, if I wanted to get the story from the book, I just read the book. I do read the books, but it's like I'm interested to see how somebody can translate this into a different medium and make it work. I want to see what you can do to retell this story, reframe this story in a different way. I find that a really exciting exercise to do. Does it fall on its face sometimes? Yeah. But it's also exciting just to see, like if they do something really creative to condense like 200 pages of a book into like 2 minutes of a movie and it actually works, I'm like, holy crap, you just did that. That's nice. Good job,
The
So it's like,
Godfather,
I don't mind them being separate. Yeah, yep.
That's the one right there. That's the one where they did it,
Although, I mean, well, to be fair, in that one, it wasn't. I mean, a lot of that stuff is verbatim. They just cut out the subplot of the of the abortion doctor and Sonny's mistress.
You
They cut all that out.
uncomfortable scene. I didn't tell you this, but I didn't read the book. I heard the audiobook about 2 months ago. And Mario Puzo, the way he wrote that sex scene, it was like I'm listening to it, right? And he's going into all this graphic detail, and I'm like, this is not why I want to read The Godfather, dude. I want to hear about like the mafia. I don't want to hear about how big Sonny's penis is. It was just so weird. That's a good move. You know what? People say, oh, well, when you adapt the book, you should never cut anything out. Cut shit like that out. But here's the truth,
welcome to the Super Mario Brothers adaptation video where we talk about Sonny Corleone's penis. Wow, we went through quite a Mario green pipe here, didn't we?
We've talked about 8 different franchises here in this.
I love it.
No, it's a good time. But yeah, I just we're talking. We went from an Italian plumber who wants to bone a princess to an Italian mafia guy who is cheating on his wife with his big pipe. So I guess there is some correlation there. There's some. No, but
I'm afraid you're gonna get us in trouble if you keep on talking.
Well, I mean, we'll be all right. So, all right, but here's the thing. Here's the bottom line. When it comes to adapting a book to a movie, if people want a literal, like, shot-by-shot adaptation, let's say that somebody took Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone, the first book, and they adapted it. That's like a 25-hour movie. It doesn't work. You have to cut things out, and that's why it's infuriating when somebody says, well, it's not like the book. Well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Like, I agree with you on that. I just feel like when it comes to certain video games, like you mentioned, stuff like Zelda, Metroid, it's just really difficult to give it justice because the reason why those games work is because you are the one doing things. It's your sort of learning. You're the one discovering and solving the puzzle. That's what it is. And when you're watching a film, like even when you see something like Knives Out or like Clue, it's fun, but it's still a movie. Whereas if you're playing Clue, or even if you're reading like a mystery novel, those are cool, but like it's a different kind of enjoyment. Before we go, last thing, there wasn't a single hint in this movie about Wario or Waluigi. I feel like now, do you think that could work as its own film? I think he'd be a better antagonist to Mario. How do you feel about Wario in this big universe of Mario movies?
That's interesting because I feel like feel like Nintendo has never known what to do with this.
I agree, but they made some good games though. I love Wario Land.
Well, they have, but they've always because he's never been in Miyamoto and Nintendo EAD's wheelhouse. He was created by R&D1 for Super Mario Land 2.
Yeah.
And so there's like he's never has he I don't think he's never been in a core Mario game, has he? He's always been in spin-offs.
Yeah, he's always been in like the tennis games and all, and the Smash type games. Yeah, he's never been in a core Mario game.
So it's like even after because the game came out 31 years ago, Mario Land 2, and even after all this time, like Miyamoto doesn't seem to want to do anything, have anything to do with him. So people like Wario and Waluigi, they seem to exist. Well, Wario has his own spin-off series, or has had it, and they appear in like the sports titles and the party games. But beyond that, like and characters like Daisy as well, they don't seem to have like a real characterization. They're not really real people in the Mario universe, even now. So like, I don't know how you would do that. I don't know if they would want them to do that.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's a very good point.
It's one of those things where that's sort of a tonal thing too, because like for example, you have like in this movie universe, for example, they're just Mario and Luigi are two regular guys from Brooklyn. So how tonally do you fit their evil doppelgangers into this plot? Like, where do they even come from? I guess you could be like, it's an alternate universe kind of thing. I think that's the best way you could do it.
That's the best way.
It's just there's an evil Crooklyn or something.
Yeah,
you know,
they're
and
evil.
Wario and Luigi have their evil plumber brothers.
Yeah, and they cause floods. They cause floods, and they cause like they break toilets instead of fixing them. I don't know.
I think that's the only way you could do it. Is just say there's a whole different universe that has them in there, because I don't think you could even fit them into like they're clearly not part of Mario's family. We saw a lot of them in the movie, and they're nothing like. I did like that.
Me too.
I thought it was interesting because usually, well, okay, the cartoons had relatives played by Lou Albano and Danny Wells in drag. The '93 movie, I think, just said their parents were dead. So I think it was interesting to have like all these aunts and uncles and cousins and parents.
Very Italian. It's a very Italian family.
Yeah. It was. I liked that. I did like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it would, but here's the thing. The reason why I would like to see Wario is because the idea of doing the multiverse, everyone's already doing it anyway, so you might as well. Plus, I would love it. As a fan, I would love it if the final battle of that film is Mario versus Wario, and we're seeing power up versus power up, and we're literally seeing them use the power ups from the games and sort of figure out how to strategically beat each other. If Mario's got the cape and Wario's got like the bull hat, and then you could imagine how much fun it would. You know what it reminds me of? The Sword and the Stone, the Wizard's Duel, something like that would be so much fun to see. You imagine like they're just getting all these power ups and like countering each other's power ups.
Sword of the Stone is not where I expected you to go with that, but I'm impressed that you did. I thought you were going to say Dragon Ball, because that's what it was sounding like to me.
No, but Dragon Ball, like, I guess you could do that, but I was thinking more like, the reason why, I don't know why, I guess because Sword in the Stone, when they're doing the Wizard's Duel, they're transforming into different animals. So, in a way, a lot of the power-ups are like that. A raccoon, a cat, a frog. I was waiting to see the frog suit. Like, they have so many... Mario has such a long history. We haven't even seen the P-Wing yet. Like, there's such a long history of power-ups that would be... And it would be different from, like, this film's finale, where you have, like, they're on equal playing field. Who's going to be the smarter fighter? And Wario lets his anger take over. It becomes like a light side, dark side type of thing. Dude, I want this to happen now. Now I want it to happen. I'm going to wish it into the world to happen. I would be in the movie theater stoned out of my mind enjoying this. You would be enjoying it for a different reason.
Well, I'm just happy to see you so excited.
I'm excited because for years, dude, and you know where I'm going with this, we've had video game adaptations that have been trash for years, and now we're getting good ones. Like, that's refreshing. That's very refreshing. Also, I forgot to tell you, I already came up with the opening scene of Mario 2. I came up with it in my head as I'm driving home from seeing Mario 1. So the film opens up with Mario, Luigi, Toad, and the princess on a magic carpet, and they go face off against Wart. And they're about to go at it. Then Wart wipes them all out. He beats them, blah, blah, blah. And then Mario wakes up and he's like, damn it, I had that dream again. And that's how the movie starts. Would that not be the best Easter egg in history? It literally starts like that.
That would be pretty funny.
That'd be awesome, yo. That would be awesome. Like, the only thing that would suck is I'm a big fan of like the Mario 2 bosses. Like I forget their names. You probably know. I think his name's Mauser, the mouse that has the bombs, and then you've got the 3-headed dragon. Like I love those. Dude, I love those characters, yo. Like they're so why it's a shame we never saw them again because they're cool.
Well, like so many things for me, I have fondness for them because they were they were important characters in the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. So like they were always the minions, like the important minions before they replaced them with the Koopalings. But yeah, so you never see them anymore. Like all the rest of the enemies have been sort of incorporated over into the Mario universe, but they've stayed right where they are. That's interesting.
And Doki Doki Panic, like it's almost been everybody knows now the truth about Mario 2. But it's almost like they've wiped those characters off from Nintendo canon. And I know they had like a deal with like Fuji TV or whatever, but it's so bizarre to me that we haven't seen Wart or any of those characters in Smash, considering they were in a Mario game. Like you would think they would say, let's put them in. Why is it that we don't even see them ever? Like, why are they not in Mario Tennis?
Well, there is one thing you're forgetting because Wart, his original name is Mamu, and Mamu has appeared in other. He has been in Zelda games. Well, he's been in Link's Awakening, which just got a re-release a couple years ago.
He was.
But he has been there.
You're right, and that was also kind of a dream thing. So that no, you're right. I completely forgot about that. I love that game. Link's Awakening, the first Zelda game on the Switch was Link's Awakening. It was the first.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was the first Zelda game. The first real Zelda game on the Switch was Link's Awakening.
Wait. You're not counting Breath of the Wild?
No. I said the first Zelda game. I didn't say Skyrim with Link in it. I said the first Zelda game.
Oh, right.
Link's
We're doing
Awakening.
that.
We're doing that. We're doing it. You know my disdain for that game. Anyways,
yes, I do.
check out Mister Fusion's channel. Although I will say this about Breath of the Wild. If they were to adapt the Breath of the Wild story into a movie, I'd be fine with it because I do like the story of that game. I will never criticize. I do genuinely enjoy the story.
It would not take. I mean, you could probably do that as a movie because there's not that much story to that game.
I know, but
you probably could do that as a movie without having to cut too much out.
Well, the lore I like, and the whole like calamity, like that's all those ideas I think are cool. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, which dungeons do you put in though? It's hard. Anyways, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else, man. Do you have anything else?
Gonna work my Mario doll into this video. He's been making a lot of appearances in my videos lately.
I love that Mario doll. It's so big. Like he looks angry, even though he's not angry.
Oh, I saw like plushes of Mario and Luigi like this with plastic heads from the movie in Target the other day, and I almost picked them up. I'm like, do I really need more Mario dolls? This one's served me well for like 35 years. So
I actually love that one.
I took him to the movie with me. He and I with one ticket. I didn't get a ticket for him.
Well, that's good.
We watched the movie together.
He shouldn't have to pay for his own movie.
That's right. Oh, you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah. What kind of shit is that? Then again, Hollywood, they don't care. Anyways, yo, I'm sure we'll do one of these at some point. But I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, of course. And check out Mr. Fusion and that Donkey Kong video for sure. I'll even link that Mario one that you did as well with the history of Mario's, like his appearance. And because that's always been interesting to me. Do one for Link as well, because that's even more interesting.
Hey, maybe I will.
It's
a good idea. Thanks for the idea.
Hey, I'm full of them. When they say I'm full of it, I respond back with I am, with money and ideas. I'll take either one. Maybe someday women again. We'll see. Little by little. Anyways, I'm fucking around. We'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.
Bye.